We are a union. This nation is a union of people. And I come with a union background. I used to be a union rep. My thing about unions is the people or the places that need unions are when the people actually stop being appreciative of the labor that's actually out there executing their vision, and when they start treating them like a number because they forgot their name and they don't want to give them their fair share of a business that is producing a lot of profit. Well, a union allows you to come together and speak as one voice. We are back with another episode of The Julius Files. I am your host, Jason Julius, and this episode is let's call this a special episode because there's going to be this is just me. This is a mix between, let's say, off the rails and a little bit of Julius perspective on the back end of it. But it was just one of those issues, one of those events that happened that I felt the need to actually speak on it in general. So let me tell my story. So I got a diverse group of people in my organization, and by this diversity, I'm referring to their thinkings. But I've got a guy that was, I guess, more or less trying to develop his own political party, and he had drawn up a flyer, and he took it to Rebecca and was like, "Can I post this?" And she looked at the flyer and was like, I don't know that you want to post. I don't know. You probably better get Jason's approval. Well, as a little bit of a backstory, don't get me wrong. This, like I said, this is a good kid. But they kind of razz him in the back. They call him the commie. But he's a good kid, and he really is a decent worker. And he shows up on time and he interacts with everybody well. But there's a personal passion here. And it's not like I know him well, but I know him from the feedback that I get from the managers, and he seems to always do his job to the best of his ability. But he walked up to me, and he's got this stack of flyers in his hand, and you could tell there was a little bit of anxiety there. And he said, "Jason, can I post this?" And he started to show me, and I said, "I don't want to see it. The hallway is the community board. Post it on the community board." And I think he was a little bit shocked. And I very quickly told him, this is America, First Amendment, freedom of speech. And I'm saying this, like I said, he's a good kid. I don't think that he's going to put anything vulgar up there, but I didn't need to see what it was that he wanted to post. We developed a community board so that any type of notice or anything that they wanted to post, that they're free to post it. And my employees are no different. And obviously, if he's got a personal passion that he took the time to actually develop a flyer, I'm like, who am I to judge? It's America. Freedom of speech. It doesn't matter what I think of the flyer. Post the flyer on the community board. So he walked away happy. And later on, I kind of looked at Rebecca. I was like, what was that about? And she was like, you didn't read the flyer. And I'm like, no, I'm not concerned what the flyer actually says. Again, freedom of speech. Everybody has a right to their own opinion. And obviously, if this guy actually wants to write this, then he's got an opinion. Well, obviously, curiosity killed the cat. I couldn't let it go for, I think it was 2 days later that I thought, I probably better see what this actual flyer that I told him to post on the community board said. So I want to read it. It was join the PSL. The Party for Socialism and Liberation is comprised of leaders and activists, workers and students of all backgrounds. Our mission is to fight for a new world, for affordable housing, an end to racist police brutality, a higher minimum wage, and union rights, to the global issues of imperialist war and environmental destruction. Join us for an info session on how to join the fight for liberation in Kokomo. Okay, now, there's my story, and as I'm reading it, I'm shaking my head. Now, one, I'm shaking my head for several different reasons, and I feel the need to break that part down. So I know a little bit about branding. I know a little bit about messaging. So as I'm reading this, I'm reading the lower levels of it, and I'm thinking, okay, there's legitimate concern here, because I've said and heard said, like, if you're not completely liberal in your 20s, there's probably something wrong with you. And if you have an open mind and you're willing to learn and grow, if you have not at least swung to the middle, if not all the way conservative into your 30s and 40s, there might also be something wrong with you. Why? Because when you're not in your prime earning years, well, then you are thinking about free shit and everything that everybody should be giving to you and how you should be participating at the level everybody else does without actually having to work for it. You want free shit. As you get into your 30s and 40s and you're actually working harder to earn your money and you're seeing that you're actually paying a very large clip into the tax system, you don't want to hear about somebody else screaming that you're not giving enough because you should be giving them more. And again, it's just keeping an open mind, because no matter what your feelings are at 20, don't hold close to them, like so close to your chest that you become closed-minded and you're not willing to learn, change, and grow, because you're going to learn new things in the 10 years from 20 to 30. You're going to learn a bunch of new things from 30 to 40, and it will likely change your perspective in general. But the point is to start off with, because this is land of the free, home of the brave. I'm like, the party of socialism and liberation. Like, that's not overly going to fly well in most parts of, and I'll even say middle America. That might actually fly okay in the coastal areas. I don't know. I don't live in the coastal areas, but I'm like, it's not overly going to fly well in Indiana. And I won't fly well over the vast majority of America as far as the country itself. But it was a messaging wise, if they want to talk about affordable housing, if they want to talk about racist police brutality, about minimum wage, about union rights, tagging that with socialism automatically, like you could have, I just feel like you could have messaged better. You could have branded better. And I'm saying that because I'm not, again, kid's a good kid. And I'm all for whatever you're passionate about. But then when I asked, I was like, okay, well, this event, how did the event go? And they looked at me and they were like, nobody showed up. And in that moment, I felt bad because I could see that this is a legitimate flyer that he put legitimate time and effort into, but nobody resonated with the message and nobody actually showed up. And I was personally like, I wanted to make it a point of saying, I don't necessarily agree with this message, but I was willing to let it post in my operation on the community board, because freedom of speech is more important than anything else in this country. And it's not about me agreeing with the message. It's about me respecting somebody else's right to their free thought and their free speech and being willing to let them post it, because what he wrote was not, quote unquote, like offensive in any way. It was just an opinion of a 20-year-old that I'm like, okay, in my personal humble opinion, you've got some learning and growing and realizations. But then we get into the perspective of it, because then I'm looking at addressing all of this stuff. Like, I don't party for socialism and liberation. I'm like, you can step off with that. I understand that we have some socialistic programs in this country, but that's not what this country is founded on. And if you look back in history, like, nobody should tolerate or want socialism. You can really show me there are no good examples of socialism successfully executed in a mass population that says we should be in any way trying to bring it back or emulate that. And it doesn't fly in America. But moving on, he says that he wants to fight for a new world. Okay, well, in my eyes, he's saying he wants change. And I'm like, well, change is inevitable. So there's nothing wrong with change per se. So if you are symbolically thinking of a new world, I'm like, hey, I get you. Let's have that conversation. How can we make improvements in our world? But the point being, the way he's saying new world is, it is implying tear down what we've built. And again, not going to fly. And no, I don't necessarily agree with it. For affordable housing. Okay, I'm not going to disagree with that. When it comes to quote unquote affordable housing, we start talking about cost of living. The problem is he's making this statement and he has this perspective from Kokomo, Indiana, and I know that Kokomo, Indiana has some of the lowest cost, most affordable housing in America right now, that if you really want to complain about affordable housing, well, take your ass to California or New York, and then you'll really have something to complain about when it comes to affordable housing in general. So then he moves on to the end to racist police brutality. Okay, again, I support our police. I support our fire. I support the people that put themselves in harm's way to take care of their communities. And the problem is, in any organization, in any group, in any tribe of people, you're going to have the 1% that screws it all up and makes everybody look bad. And expecting perfection or a perfect functioning organization of people is not realistic. And I just do not personally believe that by and large, that our police force is made up of racist police that want to brutalize the public that they are there to serve. So I'm sitting there feeling like it's misguided, because I don't believe that police brutality is something that is on the forefront. I mean, like, even the people that were talking about that stuff were like, get rid of and defund the police. And now they're sitting here going, no, please bring them back. Yeah, there is a purpose for the police. They actually provide safety. So again, everybody can take that from what they may. But the biggest one that I draw issue with, and I'm saying I draw issue with it because, again, I'm considering the context and the individual that is actually stating this. A higher minimum wage. Here's my problem with the minimum wage. One, for our unintelligent politicians that they feel the need to deliver a message on a 3-year-old level, they will flat tell you, well, if you're not making $15 an hour, you should just sit and not work. Well, that doesn't work. That doesn't work for this nation. And here's the bigger problem. I'm not paying a 16-year-old $15 an hour. Not in today's economic standards. You let me sell a cup of coffee for $10 a cup, okay, then I'll pay a 16-year-old $15 an hour. But the point is, when you set a minimum wage and tell everybody you have a right to a living wage of at least $15 an hour, that crock of shit has done more to screw up the mentality of this generation of this country more than anything else. So if you were to say, we're going to have a 2-tiered system. If you are 30 years of age or older, you have a right to a minimum wage of $15 an hour for a living wage. And if you are under the age of 30 years old, that does not apply. I don't care if you said, like right now, I guess the federal minimum wage is like $7.25 an hour. And if you said, well, the minimum wage is $8 an hour or even $10 an hour for anybody under 30 years old, that there should be 2 tiers, because I deal with, one of the businesses that I'm in is the food and beverage industry, and I deal with a lot of 16 to 25-year-olds that are first jobbers, part-timers, working their way through school, learning how to be good employees, picking up extra money as they're working through college. They're not worth $15 an hour. And I'm just being honest. We have to teach them how to be good employees. If I hire a 30-year-old, that's a learning curve that I don't have to get past. They're supposed to know how to be good, productive employees. And I can understand that at you saying $15 an hour is what we believe is a fair living wage for a full-blown adult. Okay, I can wrap around that, but we got so many politicians out there that it makes a good soundbite that they throw it out there, not realizing, or maybe they do realize and they just don't give a shit, which is part of the problem because they talk mad shit about how they support small business while putting the screws to us, because it's issues like this and policies like this that have such a devastating effect on small business that I can't pay $15 an hour. And when I say that, like, we literally in one of the stores interviewed a girl at 16 years old, first-time jobber. She stomped out of the interview because we were not offering her a $15 an hour job. And I'm like, are you freaking insane? And the only reason that she could have that mentality or even a thought that she was worth that kind of money is because she was listening to MSM and them dumbass politicians that were sending a message that is screwing up our society and our younger generation. Now, the reality is, our minimum wage and what people find acceptable is starting to move higher. I've literally seen it, and I don't have a problem with it as an overall. But when you have this country printing money with nothing being backed by it, disturbing the supply chain, telling everybody if you can't get 15 an hour, you should sit on your hands. Well, when we're sitting here at an 8% inflation rate, it is moving all prices higher, and they're going to get to that $15 an hour minimum wage. But you know what? It is not going to get you one damn thing more than what you got at the $7.25, because the only people that are going to win is the government, because the only thing that they're looking to do is keep their Ponzi scheme going, and they need more tax revenue coming in, and their biggest tax revenue comes off of employee and employment tax. So they need the wages to go higher so that they get a bigger cut, so that they can continue to make promises and spend stupid money on ridiculous things that they have no business spending it on, and making promises and bills that actually send the majority of that money overseas while putting the debt on our head. And at the end of the day, who benefits? Not us, the politician. It gives them the ability to continue to make promises and invent stupid ass bills and spend ridiculous amounts of money. So the minimum wage issue is such a loaded issue, because when they make those statements, they think that it should apply to everybody, and that's just dumb. And anybody that thinks that I should be paying a 16-year-old $15 an hour, you are dumb, and I'm just being honest about it. Okay, so then it says minimum wage and union rights. Well, the reality is the president makes a State of the Union address every year. We are a union. This nation is a union of people. And I come with a union background. I used to be a union rep. My thing about unions is the people or the places that need unions are when the people actually stop being appreciative of the labor that's actually out there executing their vision, and when they start treating them like a number because they forgot their name and they don't want to give them their fair share of a business that is producing a lot of profit. Well, a union allows you to come together and speak as one voice. So I am neither for or against unions per se. I think that sometimes they are necessary and sometimes they are ridiculous. And honestly, I'm going to sit here and say I think unions inside of Starbucks are ridiculous. I don't think that there will be anything gained out of installing unions inside of Starbucks. But again, my personal opinion, and again, free country. Everybody has the ability to vote and exercise their beliefs, because at the end of the day, majority rules, and you have to accept with what goes with it. So let's see, we goes to the global issues of imperialist war and environmental destruction. Well, you know what? I kind of got to agree with him. I mean, we are, in fact, destroying our environment. The problem is, I think America is destroying our environment far less than virtually any and every other nation in the world. Now, I'm making a by and large statement, and I'm sure somebody can actually rebut the statement in general, but I'm making a by and large statement because I know that we do a whole lot to be environmentally, quote unquote, friendly or get better. And I know that places like China do not give a shit about the environment, and they are doing nothing but just dumping toxic shit into our waters. And it is a real issue. And I know that America is supposed to be leading, but it does come down to just how much, where should the blame actually go, I guess is what I'm getting at. But change has to start somewhere, and I'm a big believer that war is ridiculous, because when you look at it, it ends up being a power struggle of the high and mighty, and it is the common folk, all of us, that have to pay the price for ridiculous wars that are nothing more than power struggles by the powers that be, and it's just absolutely ridiculous and pointless. But his flyer that he put together was very respectful, but ending it with to join the fight for liberation in Kokomo. I'm here to tell you that Kokomo is a great community, and a lot of people just kind of roll their eyes at a statement like that, or gloss over Kokomo. Kokomo is a blue-collar community. Kokomo is a manual labor, hard-working community. It is honestly, Kokomo has been able to benefit from a lot of union negotiations that happen inside of Detroit, where they have a higher cost of living up there, and then the employees in Kokomo working for Chrysler and GM have been able to enjoy those higher wages while also enjoying a much lower cost of living and cost of housing. And I just don't have anything bad to say about Kokomo. So when I see this perspective that's coming from somebody in Kokomo, I'm like, there's a whole big world out there. And if you think the world is unfair from a perspective in Kokomo, sooner or later you're going to get outside of Kokomo and find out just how unfair and how slanted this world is. And it's not like I'm overly a world-traveling individual, but I've seen some shit, and I've been in many, many states, and by and large, Indiana has got pretty low cost of living compared to the rest of the nation as a whole, and I just found it interesting that these were the views and these were the perspectives that was coming from the younger generation in little old Kokomo, Indiana. And I mean, from my perspective, we got it pretty good here. And I've got a business in Indianapolis, and I grew up in Indianapolis. And again, very happy, very appreciative with Indianapolis. Indiana just happens to be my land of opportunity. And I know my voice coming out of Indiana, a lot of people will gloss over this because they come from the coastal areas, and I respect your perspective and your viewpoints. This is just mine from, I guess, a flyover state from middle America. But from my perspective, we got it pretty good when you take into account that we still have living generations in this world right now that know what it's like to not have plumbing. And as far as I know, we've got areas of this world that still don't know about clean water or plumbing. And from that perspective, we've got it pretty good in this country despite all of our woes. So I couldn't let it go. The way his post or his flyer kind of got me, but the whole point was freedom of speech. He's a good kid, and he's young, and he's got a lot to learn, but far be it from me to do anything to get in the way of somebody voicing their opinions or something that they are passionate about. And I didn't have any problem at all letting him post it. I did feel a certain sense of empathy that nobody showed up because I know that had to be a little bit deflating for him. But that's part of you put your ideas out there. And if people resonate with it, well, then you start growing your tribe. And if they don't, well, then I guess it's back to the drawing board. So, all right, I'm going to wrap up this podcast, and I will still end it with saying, share the show. Let me know how you feel about the show. If you have any thoughts or feelings, definitely leave it in the reviews. Let me know what you think of the show in general. But until next time, you guys have a good night.